Hey everyone, welcome to presentation number 5 entitled Ships at Sea. And people use the term when my ship comes in. And for many people, network marketing is the only way that their ship will ever come in. Fortunately or unfortunately, I think it's fortunate that network marketing exists because most people will never get an inheritance. And they won't be able to save up enough money to buy a traditional business for $200,000, $300,000, $500,000. And network marketing allows a person to be mentored personally and build a business without disturbing their current means of support. So using this when my ship comes in ship analogy, you can understand how to know who is serious in your organization and who you need to work with. So there's 3 types of ships, and picture this, you're waiting on the shore for one of 3 types of ships to dock, and the 3 types of ships are full of gold, full of silver, or empty, and which one would you like to dock? I mean, these ships represent all distributors in your organization, whether personally sponsored or not. So if you've got a bunch of distributors in your organization, and some are gold, some are silver, and some are empty, which ships would be the best to work with? And obviously the answer is, it's not a trick question, it's the gold ship. And if this is true though, why does everyone, when they start out in network marketing, have a tendency to work with empty ships and try to convince them to become gold ships? An example of this would be when you have a gold ship come into your organization, you think he or she will go out and set the world on fire. You know, he knows what he's doing, he's very personable, he knows a lot of people, she's great at this, she's great at that. You know, you let them go out on their own and you concentrate on empty ships that are dragging you down. The empty ships will stay empty and the gold ships without support will go away. And this is the wrong way of going about the business. What you have to do is find your gold ships within your organization and pour as much support as you can into them. And what will happen is when a new distributor comes in the business, they're a silver ship, and how you work with them and support them determines whether they turn into a gold ship or they go empty. The more silver ships you turn into gold, the fewer people you have to sponsor to get your 5 serious people and really start building. So what are some characteristics of a gold ship? First, they're eager to learn. They call you with questions that they want answered and they ask for help. They might have someone that they want you to help to train or someone that they want you to help to sponsor potentially, and they're excited about the business. They understand enough about the business to know it's going to work for them, and it excites them. Lastly, they make commitments. They're buying and using the products, and they're spending their spare time learning about the business and products, etc. They're putting effort in. And before I continue, if you want more of your sponsor's time, keep all of these things in mind. Do these things and show that you're a gold ship, and I promise you, you'll get more of your sponsor's time. So let's continue. They have goals. Goals help drive people to what they really want, and their why is strong. Time with their family, more vacation time. If you have a strong why, you tend to push for it. And people with goals get where they want to go. They have a list of names. The list will be written down, and the reason for having it is that you can add to it anytime and you won't forget the name later. So if I think of somebody that would benefit from the product or a business, I write the name down and then later on I have it on my list at the ready. And they're fun to be with. They look forward to your visit, whether it's business or pleasure. And lastly, gold ships are positive. These are people who you're going to travel the world with potentially. Who wants to hang around negative people? Positive thinking is contagious. There's no point. You can choose who you want to work with, so work with positive people. Basically, the only difference between a silver ship and a gold ship is that the silver has not yet been in the business long enough to understand the business to the point of getting serious about it. So there's 3 important words pertaining to that, and if you understand these 3 words, you'll understand what makes all network marketing organizations work, and it's expose, involve, and upgrade. First, you expose the person to the power of residual income, and then, after they understand residual income, to your business as a vehicle. Once you have explained it to them, get them involved with this training. Once they're involved, they'll be constantly thinking about how far they can go, and it will be upgraded constantly. So expose them to residual income and network marketing by using the introductory presentation, and then presentations 1 through 4. And then lastly, once they've seen that and they're still interested, you use your company's presentation. Then get them involved by training them using presentations 5 through 10, which you're going through now. And then upgrading will come naturally once they understand and begin utilizing these 10 presentations and set their sights at the top. So here's a couple other important tips. When you call or visit your distributors, they should know that you're calling because you want to help, not to push them. Empty ships will always feel bugged, even if you're calling just to help. Gold ships just figure you're trying to help, and you'll pick that up in the tone of the conversation. Empty ships typically sink, and when they do, make sure you're not on board with them. Stay on the gold ships, work with the gold ships. Silver and empty ships many times will start to see your success if you work with the gold ships, and they'll call on you to get together and get growing once they start to see that success below them. Lastly, 3 points. It's very important never to ask your distributors, how much did you sell, or any kind of sales questions. Don't invalidate the statement that we're not salespeople by asking sales numbers. That makes it seem like you don't care about them. And like Zig Ziglar said, you can have anything in the world that you want simply by helping enough people get what they want. So help them get what they want. And understand also that you're not an empty ship. If you're viewing this presentation, by the time you get this far, you're gold or well on your way. Okay, presentation number 6 is entitled The Third Party Invitation. And the third party invitation relates to prospecting in network marketing. So if I know Carol, I don't go up and ask Carol if she is interested in earning extra income or if she is interested in a product. Reason being, even if she was interested, she would probably want me to think that she was doing fine, and she would reply, no, I'm not interested, or she probably wouldn't want you to sell to her, so she would say, no, I'm not really interested. So what I can say is something like, Carol, I'm launching a new business venture and I thought you might be able to help me. Do you know anyone that would be interested in earning some extra income? That's a third party invitation. Notice the third party is anyone. When you ask, do you know anyone, you leave the door open for Carol, but also for Carol to tell you about someone else. For example, I might ask Carol and she might not be interested, but she might know someone who's recently mentioned to her that she was looking for something like this. So if I would have asked Carol directly, I would have never learned about her friend that would be interested. So if Carol were to say, sure, I am interested, remember, you're saying, Carol, do you know anyone that's interested? That leaves the door open for Carol to say, sure, I'm interested, what is it? Don't go into your company or any type of long explanation. Ask if they know what residual income is. Do you know what residual income is? If yes, ask them what they know. And it doesn't matter what they say, just direct them to the introduction and these first 4 presentations in this set. If they don't know what residual income is, direct them to the introduction and the first 4 presentations. It's very simple. It's as simple as that. After reviewing the residual income in network marketing via the introduction and the first 4 presentations, then use your company tools, your DVDs, your websites, on your business itself to expose them to what your company is. So overcoming rejection. Using the third-party invitation, it's impossible to be rejected because you're just asking if they know anyone. If they reply, I'm not interested, you might take that as a rejection, but that wasn't your question. Your question was if they know anyone, not if they were interested. So if they say they don't know anyone, give them your card and ask them to please let you know if they do think of anyone in the future or run across anyone in the future that might be interested. And you're fine. And in all cases, the third-party invitation, the do you know anyone, keeps you from the possibility of being rejected. Okay, presentation number 7 is entitled Where to Spend Your Time, and it has to do with the time management aspect of your network marketing business. So take a look at the graph below. It lays out where you should be spending your time. And basically in the beginning, 100% of your time should be spent on sponsoring, looking for your 5 key partners. And as time goes on and you start to begin to find these partners, your shift is going to have to focus from 100% of the time sponsoring to helping to develop your partners and build that depth. So we'll go into that a little further. You might be saying, what about the training? In the previous presentations, one of the most important aspects of your first month training is prospecting with your upline. That's how you're going to train, is by learning how to prospect. And as a byproduct, you'll bring on prospects. So it's important to get prospecting right away to build momentum out of the gate in your business. So as time goes by, the amount of time you spend sponsoring people will drop off. And this is because all of a sudden you'll begin to have your first serious person, and then 2 serious people, 3 serious people, 4. And when you have your 5 serious partners, you'll have to shift your focus from sponsoring to spending time building depth with your 5 key partners. So if you want to look at this in a linear fashion, in the beginning with no partners, you've got 100% of your time looking for partners. When you bring on one partner, 20% of your time should go to him. 2 partners, 40% should go to those 2 partners. 3 partners, 60%. 4 partners, 80%, and 20% recruiting and sponsoring. And in the end, once you have your 5 partners, you should be drastically reducing the amount of prospecting you're doing and do a lot more working with your 5 key partners individually. At this point, spend your time teaching and reaching for that bedrock. Teach your people to sponsor. Then teach them to teach their people to sponsor. And when they go 3 to 4 levels deep and no longer need your help, you can offer the opportunity to work with you to a new prospect. In other words, once they're independent, once one of your 5 is independent, they can break off and you basically can bring on another one to fill out your 5 that you work with. For ongoing maintenance, when you have your 5 serious people, you should be spending about 95% of your time working with them. And then 2% of your time you should be servicing customers. 2% of your time you should do what's called planting seeds. Planting seeds is basically just giving the idea of residual income out. And by planting seeds, as your initial 5 people start to become independent, you already have the seed planted in the minds of others so that you could circle back around and fill in the gaps. You might say something like, I can only work with 5 people at a time, Jim, but I can let you know if a spot becomes available. And then once the spot becomes available, let him know. Hey everyone, welcome to presentation number 8 entitled The Sizzle Sells the Steak. And this talks about keeping your group motivated. And I'm going to use the analogy of the campfire. If you ever notice that you have a campfire and you separate one of the logs from the campfire, that log goes out. Or if you have a pile of coals and they're all hot and you separate one coal, the coal will typically go out. If you put those coals back together or those logs back together, the fire will blaze up again. So if you have 1 log, you don't have anything. 2 logs, you'll have a flame. 3, you'll have a fire. 4 logs together create much more. And people are really the same way. People in your distributor force are going to be the same way. So what we do to keep everybody motivated are what I call sizzle sessions, which basically means we get together. The next time you're meeting your sponsor, show up early and notice the lack of energy around the table when you are alone. Then when your sponsor gets there, there's much more energy. And then this is only compounded as 3 people arrive and 4 people arrive and 5 and 6 and 7, and it gets more and more energy as more and more people show up. So it's important to get together with your group regularly for sizzle sessions. And a sizzle section is not an opportunity presentation. It's a time where a group of distributors, your distributors, get together and talk strategy, encourage each other, talk about what's going on, do training, etc. And some of the benefits of sizzle sessions, many times people hear the same message from a new source and finally get it. So maybe you've been telling somebody the same thing for 3 weeks, yet they hear it from somebody else at this sizzle session, and all of a sudden it rings to them, something clicks. Distributors hear advice to others that they can apply to their own situation. Maybe you or somebody in your group has a problem that somebody else asks about and all of a sudden it's solved. Or maybe an idea comes from someone else and there's a cohesion there and you can work together. Sometimes patrons of locations where you hold your sizzle session overhear you and you might get a prospect or 2. So maybe you're doing your sizzle session at a restaurant and somebody overhears you and wants to know what you're doing. And most importantly, you build a cohesion and a camaraderie with your team, and that's really why you look for positive, uplifting people to be part of your team and not negative people that are going to tear you down. So some suggestions. Restaurants make great venues for sizzle sessions. Anywhere really makes a great venue for a sizzle session when you can get together, even a couple people. Just be sure that you're being respectful of other people's time. If you set it for an hour, make sure it doesn't go over an hour. If you want to hang out after, that's fine, but make sure that the main business is handled in the hour time frame that you set so that people can schedule accordingly. Start the meeting off with positive news related to their business, product, company, etc. It might be a testimonial, it might be a promotion. Start it off with something positive and implement some form of training. Maybe you train on this system, maybe you train on the product, maybe you train on the company. Maybe you do a series of trainings, and when people are through the series of trainings, they're fully trained. Maybe you want to include an ongoing contest element and keep people motivated that way. And finish every session on a positive note. Presentation number 9 is entitled Motivation and Attitude. Motivation. So network marketing contains up motivation and down motivation. Down motivation we're going to call a hot bath, and you'll see why in a second. And up motivation is considered constant, and you'll see why in a second. First of all, the hot bath. You ever notice when you take a hot bath, the hotter the water, the quicker you cool off. And the same thing is true with motivational, hyped up rallies or anything that initially gets people fired up and ready to go in their business. Problem is, when they initially get fired up, the more revved up that they get from the rally or from talking to their sponsor or from reading a book or whatever they're doing, the faster they tend to wear off and slow down. So down or hot bath motivation includes seminars, meeting with your sponsor, reading a book, moving product, etc. None of these are bad things. They're great and they have their purpose, but they're considered down motivation. So before we get into up motivation, let's talk about attitude. And you think about attitude in terms of the degrees on a thermometer, and let's say in order to stay effective in the business, your attitude has to be at least 50 degrees. If you're boiling, in other words 212 degrees, you're really, really doing great, but your effective level is 50 degrees. So I'll give you an example. A new person signs up in the business, they're excited, so their attitude is at 65 degrees. But a lot of times what happens before they learn, they go out and talk to people and get negativity from their prospects, then they get negative themselves and they drop below 50 degrees and their excitement is done. So what will happen is that the new person will meet with their sponsor, get their objections and their questions resolved related to what the other people said, and they'll go back up. Down motivation will push them back up to above 70 degrees, but the problem is that it'll only last a little bit longer before they're back down below 50 degrees again. So the question is, how do we keep attitude above 50% at all times? How do you stay effective in your business at all times? And the answer is up motivation. Up motivation stops the yo-yo because, in other words, the yo-yo is the up and down, because it is constant. Up motivation comes from activity below you in your organization. In other words, you have a sponsor and you use your sponsor to help sponsor people below you. Now, each level below you adds more constant heat. So if you take a look at these diagrams, each of your first level people that you get is worth 5 degrees. So if you had 10 people on your first level, that's 50 degrees. You're effective in the business. Each second level person is worth 10 degrees. So if you sponsored one person and they sponsored 5 people, you would have 55 degrees. So that keeps your attitude level consistently above the 50% threshold and keeps you excited about the business. So as your organization grows deeper and deeper, each level adds good attitude degrees exponentially. So you can see your first level is 5 degrees per distributor. As you build depth, level 2 is 10 degrees, level 3 is 20 degrees, level 4 is 40 degrees. So let me give you an example of up motivation. Carol sponsors Tom, Tom sponsors Bill, and then Bill goes out and sponsors 5 serious people. Carol, Tom, and Bill are all excited, and the excitement runs up throughout the organization. That's why it's called up motivation, because it motivates up. This can also convert some of the silver ships in your organization. By building depth in an organization through up motivation, downline gold ships will motivate silver ships to convert to gold. So you work with your gold ships, and you excite and convert your silver ships in between, and they'll turn into gold ships. So fostering independence, one thing that you don't want to do is have people that you have sponsored develop a big dependency on you. There has to be a point where you're working towards people becoming independent. Once your people can teach their people to teach all of these presentations, they should be relatively independent. And once one of your 5 personally sponsored people becomes independent, you can go find obviously another serious person to replace them only at that point. So to summarize, let's pretend Sue sponsors a new distributor. Sue is like the sun. The person she sponsors is like a pan of water. No matter what the sun does, it can't make the water boil, because to boil, water needs to hit 212 degrees. And no amount of down motivation can ever make the water boil. In order to boil, you need some other heat source. So the only way to make the water boil is with up motivation. If Sue's sponsor helped her sponsor one person, there's a burner lit under the pan. Just like the thermometer, as the group grows, the temperature rises. And once the fire is lit and that water starts boiling, the sun can go away and the water continues boiling without it. So ongoing management. Once you have a person with the water boiling, it might look like something on the right. The first one to boil is not necessarily the first one you sponsor. You might have to sponsor 15 people to get 5 that are serious and really working. And understand, if you think of yourself as the pan, you can only go on 5 burners at a time, so the other 10 need to go on the back burner. You work with your 5 serious people and drive them. When the water boils for one of your 5, then you can take a trip around the back burner and see if you can find somebody to replace the one that is already boiling and independent. And here are some examples of different ways to boil. It could come from 1 leg or 2 legs or 3 legs. It really doesn't matter as long as you get that depth.